Zippity frickin' doodah, y'all. This is gonna be a very fun video. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Shout out to my subscriber, Betty Sanchez. She requested that I do a market analysis of 33143, which is the zip code here in Miami that contains South Miami, part of Coral Gables, and part of Northeast Kendall. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're talking about supply, we're talking about demand, we're talking about everything that you need to know in order to make the most informed real estate decision in 33143 right now. Jake Fletcher here with the Fletcher Group at eXp Realty, your Miami real estate agent. And if you guys like videos like this, do me a quick little favor, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and consider sharing this video with anyone you know who might be looking to move to or from 33143 or any of the great zip codes here in Miami-Dade. So, like I said, we're talking about supply, total active number of listings, we're talking about sales, we're talking about close price to original price ratio, all the data that you guys need to know in order to make the most informed decision in 33143 at the current moment. So make sure you grab a pen and a paper or take some notes, whatever you need to do, because this one's gonna be action-packed. And by the way, if there's any other zip codes you guys want me to do a market analysis for, drop those in the comments down below and I'd be happy to take a look at those. And in the description down below, you can also find all my contact info. So if you have any questions about this zip code, any other zip codes, or anything to do with Miami real estate, reach out to me directly and I'd be happy to help. So let's jump into this data here. The first thing we're looking at is a little bit of data that I compiled myself. So we have 49 pending listings right now in 33143. There's 98 units of active inventory for a total of 147 properties that are currently on the market, either active or in pending status. Now, there are 25 listings, or 25.5% of all active listings, that's non-pending listings, that have seen price cuts in the current market. So they've actually seen an average of 6.4% reduction in their list price, okay? So I thought that was pretty interesting. More than a quarter of the properties that are active on the market right now, in other words, not in pending status, more than a quarter of those properties have seen price cuts with an average reduction of at least 6%. So pretty interesting point there to take note of. Now, another little fun fact here for you here, the lowest sale in the last year in 33143 was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo that sold for $128,000. I think it was listed for $131,000. And then the highest sale in the last year was an 8-bedroom, 14.5-bath single-family home on the water in Gables Estates, and that sold for $45,250,000. The list price was $48 million. So you can see there's a wide diversity of price ranges in 33143. Most of the residential units are single-family homes, although there are condominiums as well, so that's how you got that 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And let's go ahead and look at our next bit of data here. So what we're gonna look at first is supply, okay? Because supply and demand are always one of our most important factors when we're thinking and talking about real estate, especially in this market right now. It's all about supply and demand. Yes, interest rates are a big factor. Yes, median sale prices are a huge factor. There's all these big factors that come into play, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is supply and demand. If we can understand what the market forces and dynamics are with supply and demand, then we can have a better understanding of what's really going on in the market. So the first thing that we see here, we have on the y-axis, we have our listings. On the x-axis, we have the months. So we're looking from January 2019 until this month, which last full month, which was July of 2022. So our green line there is active listings. That's another way of saying housing inventory. And our blue line there is the number of sales. So the first thing that we notice is right here, January, February 2021, we saw a huge dip in our active number of listings in our housing inventory, all right? And at the same time, we saw a pretty decent increase in the number of sales, but not compared to the negative dip that we saw in active number of listings. So keep that in mind when we take a look at new listings here in a bit. But we see that the market's tightening there, right? We see a whole lot less listings on the market, and we see that sales were actually pretty steady. Well, what happened after the market sort of absorbed this crazy reduction of inventory? Well, we start to see that since that sort of June-ish 2021 mark, we've seen that sales have sort of slowly but steadily decreased, right? So we went from having around like 130 sales at that point to now we're getting less than 100. We're at about 80 sales in July of 2022. So it might not seem like a huge difference, but for a small little zip code like that, 50 less sales in a month is a big deal, right? Especially when we're at about 80 sales right now. So moving on to our next piece here is the close price to original price ratio. And we're looking at the number of active listings here, which we had on the last slide as well. So we're looking at that inventory. We see how it dips down just like it did in the last one. What we notice here is that with our close price to original price ratio, which is in our green line here, and then in our y-axis, by the way, we have from 93% to 100%. If you're not familiar with close price to original price ratio, it just basically means the ratio between what the house was listed at and what it ended up selling at. So if it was listed for $400,000 and it sold for $400,000, then it's a 100% sale price to list price ratio. If it was listed at $400,000 and it sold for $300,000, then that's a 75% original price to close price ratio. All right. So what we see here is that as we had that big drop off in inventory, our housing inventory dipped after that. Right here it shows that it sort of dipped around July 2020. In the earlier one, we saw a bigger dip from July 2021. It's just a factor of it being a different graph or comparing it to a different metric. But we see that sort of steady decrease from around the beginning of the pandemic here, and then until really recently, like the end of this past year and the beginning of this year, right around March, similar to what we've seen in a lot of other markets, we start to see housing inventory starting to pile up. But when we saw that big drop off here, what we saw was with the close price to original price ratio, the ratio is getting tighter, meaning that it's getting closer to that 100%. In other words, it's much more likely now if you list your home for a certain price, it's much more likely that you're going to get 100% of that list price than it would have been back here in, say, July of 2020, when you were more likely to get about 95% of what you were asking. So super interesting and also noteworthy. Now, next thing we want to take a look at here, we're just looking at single family homes, not that closely. And we're looking at median sale price, right? Because that's one of the main things we always want to think about and talk about and understand with real estate. How much does it cost, right? So our median sale price here is in the green line. The blue line is median days on market. In other words, from the time that it was listed till the time that it was taken off the market, how long did that take? So in our y-axis here, we have the prices, right? Going from $500,000 up to 2.5 million, and then on the bottom axis here, we have our months again, right? So what we see is throughout the period of time from that January 2019 when the graph starts until now, we've seen days on market just reduce, just going down, down, down. We see a lot of squiggles going up and down and up and down. This is just a factor of it being, again, a small zip code. This is based off of only 1,100 listings, right? So at any given time, there's, might be only 150 or 200 things on the market at all, right? So it doesn't take a whole lot for the metrics to sort of be shifted to one way or another. So when we're looking at metrics like that, what we want to do is we want to look at the overall trends, right? So we don't want to focus too much on these peaks because they may or may not be statistically significant, so to speak. But what we see is an overall trend that it's going down, right? So we see days on market going down. In other words, houses aren't staying on the market for very long. I mean, look at that. Over here on our other side of our axis, our y-axis, we have, look at that. What is that? 10 days on market? It's flying off the market. Houses are flying off the shelf. Now, median sale price, again, we look at the trend. What has it done? It's gone up, okay? Now, this is, again, single family homes. So you're clocking in right around like 1.6, 1.65 million as your median sale price, okay? Now let's look at the same graph, but for condos, because there are condos in 33143. So same thing that we see with condos as we saw with single family homes. Overall trend of days on market going down, right? Interestingly enough, right here, towards the end of the graph, we see it's popping up a little bit there, right? Days on market's actually increasing over the last month or so. So that's interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, with our green line here, the median sale price, what has it done? Well, same thing that median sale price has done everywhere in the country. It's gone up, right? Big surprise. But what is actually kind of surprising is since the beginning of this year, when interest rates have gone up, right? They've doubled since about a year ago, we actually see that our median sale price has done a pretty significant pop up there in condos in 33143. Now, what could be the cause of that? Well, there's a couple ways of thinking about it. It could be because people, remember, sales are a lagging indicator, meaning right here you have, that would be April of this year of 2022. So those houses were going under contract in the beginning of March or February of 2022, right? So that to me tells me that those are people who were trying to lock in their lower rates while they still could, get those properties closed, and that caused sort of a rush to the exit. People were running, trying to get those houses closed ASAP before rates went up even more, and that could be some of that. It could also be the fact that housing inventory is so short in that market, and there's a lot of high demand in 33143. So that sometimes causes a feeding frenzy where you have like 5 houses that are on the market in a certain little neighborhood, and you have 100 people trying to get to those houses, right? If there was only 5 people looking for those houses, then you're not going to have 5 sales, right? If there's 100 people, then all 5 of them are going to sell, for example, right? So when there's more demand for something, of course, you're going to have more sales, right? And 33143 is a very high demand zip code. Now, the last graph that I wanted to show you guys here is months of inventory and number of new listings, right? So months of inventory is basically how many months would it take to sell everything that's on the market if no new listings came on the market, all right? So it's a measure of supply and demand both simultaneously, and that's our green line there. You can see right at the beginning of the graph, it starts around 7, almost 7.5 months of inventory, and now we're clocking in just under 3. It's like 2.8 months of inventory, so huge difference. And as far as new listings in the blue line here, what we're looking at is we've seen an overall downward trend in the number of new listings, but since the beginning of this year, we've seen a pretty significant increase overall. Like, it's definitely a trend that we're getting more new listings on the market. However, what we've seen in the last about 2 months here since May of 2022, we've seen a reduction in those number of new listings that you can see right here. So overall, the trend is still up. Overall, we're getting more properties, more new listings on the market than we were at the end of 2021 and the very, very beginning of 2022, but we're not seeing some type of astronomical increase in inventory. So what does this mean if you're a buyer? What does this mean if you're a seller? And what does it mean if you're an investor? So if you're a buyer right now, we see, yes, there's some more inventory, but close price to original price ratio is almost at parity. It's right there at the 100%. So don't expect to be getting a deal right now per se. However, there is more inventory on the market, so it's a good time to jump back in if you were on the sidelines thinking like, hey, let me see what happens with prices. Let me see what happens with interest rates. Well, guess what? Interest rates, they're fluctuating. They're always going to fluctuate, and you can always refinance later on if you get a rate that you feel like is a little bit too high. As long as you can afford the monthly payment, right now, like I've been saying on my other videos, it's all about finding the right property, okay? If it's the right house, the right property for you and your family, and you can afford the monthly payments and it works for you, marry the house, date the rate, right? Which means marry the house, you're there for 30 years, date the rate, refinance it later once things kind of cool down, once inflation goes down, and we get back into a lower interest rate environment. What does this mean if you're a seller right now? Well, as we just saw, we have more inventory on the market, aka more competition, but in the last 2 months, we've seen that competition has reduced. There's less inventory, less new inventory on the market, and overall inventory is way down than what it was last year, the year before, in general, we're at historically low levels of inventory, which as a seller, that means you have very little competition. And what did you see for median sale prices? They are just going up and up and up, right? So for single family homes, especially, median sale prices are not really slowing down. For condos, we saw that they're, they had a little bit of pop up recently. It may or may not be statistically significant. Again, we don't have like a huge amount of homes to use as our data population, essentially. So it's hard to say whether that was a statistically significant pop-up in median sale price for condos, but overall, for condos and single-family homes, median sale prices are going up. So it's a great time to cash in on your equity and do whatever you need to do. Now, if you're an investor, it really is same story as always. It's all about finding the right deal. You're going to have investor rates, so you already know that. You're not going to be able to, get the same rate as somebody who's doing FHA or, conventional for a first, primary residence. But it's all about finding the right deals. And South Miami, parts of Coral Gables, Northeast Kendall. I mean, this is prime real estate. So if you're an investor looking in this area, if you find a good deal that cash flows, I say jump on it. And if you need someone's help, if you need an expert, real estate agent's help with that, definitely remember that all my contact info is down below in the description. You can schedule a free consultation with me on my Calendly link. You can call me directly, DM me, carrier pigeon, whatever you want to do, but reach out and definitely don't hesitate because this market is not working for people who are snoozing. If you're snoozing, then you're losing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Once again, Jake Fletcher here with the Fletcher Group at eXp Realty right here in beautiful Miami, Florida. And before you go, don't forget to smash the like button, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this video with anybody and everybody that you'd like. And I'll see you on the next one. Until then, hope you guys keep on winning. Peace.